When it comes to defending civil liberties and protecting citizens from the surveillance state, Senator Rand Paul stands out among the Democrats and Republicans running for president. As Congress debates renewing the Patriot Act, Paul is promising supporters from New Hampshire to Silicon Valley, where he spoke a few days ago, that he will not waver. Is this enough to energize his libertarian base? My next guest knows a thing or two about the topic. It's David Boaz, Executive Vice President of the Cato Institute and author of The Libertarian Mind, a Manifesto for Freedom, which is awesome. I could read and reread it for ages. I read your book, I think in 1998. Does that make sense, David, Senor?
That's right. The first edition was 1997, and this is a new and updated edition.
Yeah, you've got everything about, the 2008 financial crash. You've got some NSA stuff in there, a lot of new stuff that you've gone over in the book. And, let's use your prism to discuss Senator Rand Paul. How good and effective is he on civil liberties?
Well, on civil liberties, he's been very good. There was an article in the New York Times talked about how he's all alone out there talking about civil liberties on the campaign trail. No competition in the Republican Party, and really not in the Democratic Party either, with people like Hillary Clinton. So on issues like privacy, surveillance, your cell phone, also criminal justice reform, mandatory minimums, things like that, he's been very good, and he has been uniquely good, I think, among presidential candidates.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've seen someone that consistent in that particular realm since Barry Goldwater, who got trounced, obviously. But, let's talk about areas where Senator Paul has some trouble within the Republican Party, because, they think of him as a hippie peacenik. And, they want a hawkish neocon to show ISIS, to give them the business end of the presidential arm.
Well, it depends on who you mean by they. There's a poll that says 63% of Republicans think the Iraq War was not worth fighting. And he's the only Republican who would agree with that. So I would love to be out there in Iowa or New Hampshire and be the only one of 10 candidates who agrees with 63% of the Republicans.
Yeah.
Now, since that poll, all the ISIS beheadings were on video, and that's obviously changed people's attitudes. But he says we need to deal with ISIS. He still says we need to avoid foreign wars. Yeah. And I think you see a lot of poll evidence that a lot of Republicans agree with that. So it's kind of a fine line. But the fact that all the other Republicans are piling over each other to say, I'm more hawkish than you are, I will beat the terrorists up more than you, does not necessarily mean that's where all the voters are.
Okay, but can you have it both ways? Can you be tough on terror and believable and credible and still say, I am an anti-interventionist? Can you make that case, and can it make sense?
Yeah, you're not supposed to be an extremist when you run for president. You're supposed to be prudent. Yeah. So look, back in 2001, a lot of non-interventionists said, we always said that if America got attacked, we should retaliate. Well, we got attacked. We should retaliate. We should go over to Afghanistan, throw out the Taliban government, find bin Laden. Took longer than we expected, but we did do that. So I don't think there was any inconsistency in holding that position and also being skeptical about foreign wars. And I think Rand Paul can also do that. I'd like to see him think through it a little more carefully before making some of the statements that he does. But yes, you can say we're stuck there in Iraq, ISIS is there, we have to do something about it. But let's not get involved in Syria. Let's not get further involved in Libya.
And Libya and Yemen. I mean, there are a number of places where we could turn it into such a quagmire we may never be able to extricate ourselves. But you talk about using your brain, and in order to do that, you need the libertarian mind. You need your book, and I think anyone who considers themselves to be pro-freedom, limited government needs to read this book. And as you said, libertarian is the philosophy of freedom. What do you want people to know about the book, David?
I want libertarians to know that I've tried to write the book that gives them an overview of our philosophy now in the early 21st century, and is, I hope, the book they'd like to give their friends and family who ask about libertarianism.